Hello friends, this is Lynn Barton, the Senior Pastor at Westlake United Methodist Church. And last week we began a 4-week look at the biblical principle of first fruits. Giving first fruits came from an understanding that everything we have comes from God. So we give back to God the first in time and the first in quality of all that we have. It is a way of acknowledging who God is, the great giver. Our key verse for these weeks is Proverbs 3:9. Honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of all your produce. Last week we found out that one of the 3 main reasons people give is because they believe in the mission of the organization, whether that's the church or any other charity. This week we look at the second reason people give, and that is they believe in the fiscal stability of the institution. I looked up the concept of first fruits in some Bible dictionaries, and let me tell you what I found out. This kind of giving is a very ancient practice. In fact, it precedes that of giving the tithe, which is literally 10%. The first fruits, that is the firstborn of animals, of grain, of other crops, were to be taken to the temple in Jerusalem. So they were first in time gifts. But our Jewish ancestors were also to present the choicest produce, that is, first in quality. So one would go out into the field, tying a ribbon around a fig branch or a piece of fruit, saying, "This shall be among the first fruits." These gifts were to be hand-delivered to the temple. If the distance was too great, causing the produce to spoil, they could be dried or they could be sold locally, and then the proceeds taken to the temple. How similar is that to us writing a check or making an online gift to the church today? Like we did last week, I'd like to do this week, and that is to divide in groups of 2 to 4 persons and to talk for a few moments about those questions about making first fruit gifts. You may be relieved to know that my research revealed that the minimum standard for first fruits was 1/60th of the produce. That's 1 2/3%, or 1.67%. I told you that first fruits preceded the tithe. You may be relieved to know that my research also revealed that renters were exempt. That is, if you didn't own the land you were farming, you didn't have to give the first fruits. I'm not sure how that translates to us today. Maybe that means if you're homeless or out of work today, you don't have to give first fruits. Well, my research revealed that those who lived near Jerusalem would rise up early in the morning. They would gather in the village square and begin to walk up to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a city set upon a hill. No matter what direction you approach it, you will be climbing. As they walked, those persons would be singing one of the songs of ascents. And you can find these in Psalm 120 to Psalm 134. Psalm 122, verse 1, has a wonderful line. It says, "I was glad when they said to me, 'Let us go to the house of the Lord.'" The gifts, these first fruits, were to be offered starting on the second day of Passover, that is the beginning of harvest time in the spring, and it would go all the way through the Feast of Booths in the fall. The first fruits were given to the priest at the temple, who then distributed those gifts to others. We've been practicing trust in the fiscal stability of the institution a long time. Now here's another obstacle. The tithe does not apply to Christians today, only to Old Testament Israel. Here's my answer. It is true that the tithe is not the standard of Christian generosity today. For Jesus called us to give far more than 10%. In fact, the tithe was not even the standard of Old Testament generosity either. If you want to be a biblical literalist, you would need to give at least 23 1/3% of your income a year. Why? Because there were 3 tithes, 2 that happened every year and a third one that happened just every third year. So Beyond tithing, we've already seen that the practice of first fruits was in place. So, not to mention, there's other kinds of offerings and sacrifices in the Old Testament. Jesus asked this of us, to give generously, even as that poor widow in the temple gave sacrificially. Jesus said, all that she had to live on. You can look this up in Luke's Gospel, the 21st chapter, verses 1 through 4. Here's what I teach when it comes to giving. Number one, no cold turkey tithing. That means if you're not giving 10%, don't immediately try to jump to that level. Number two, pray. If you and God are good with what you're called to give, I am too. Number three, talk as a family. Finances are one of the most important and contentious topics in marriage. Make a decision together. Talk with the children. This conversation models for children that generosity to God is a value in this family. Number four, set a percentage. This is the great equalizer. A rich person may be giving a lot of money, but only a small percentage of what they have. And a poor person may give a small amount of money, like that widow did in her 2 cents, but a large percentage. Number five, review your giving at the next stewardship emphasis time, or at the end of the year, or when you change jobs or move to a new city. Give thanks to God for God's faithfulness to you. And then number six, bump it up. Grow it by 0.5% or 1%. Over several years, you will find yourself at a tithe or beyond a tithe. That is that literal 10%. I'd like for you to talk in those same small groups now about my concept of growing in generosity. Take some time now to do that. In the early church, we find the Apostle Paul collecting an offering from the newly established churches to be given back to the poor in the mother church in Jerusalem. That's trusting in the fiscal responsibility of the institution. He says in his first letter to the church at Corinth in the 16th chapter, these words, "Now concerning the collection for the saints, you should follow the directions I gave to the churches of Galatia. On the first day of the week, each of you is to put aside and save whatever extra you earn, so that collections need not be taken when I come." The church has been doing this a long time, managing monies given to help others. At this point, we have some copies of the budget for Westlake United Methodist Church for this last year. And then I'd like for you to listen to this church official talk about how we form a budget here at this church and how we practice fiscal responsibility.
Hi, I'm Donna Meek. I'm the head chair of the Finance Committee. Each of the committees here at Westlake United Methodist Church submit requests to support their ministries. The Stewardship Campaign communicates our need to give and to underwrite these ministries to the congregation. The Finance Committee makes its best estimate of how much ministry we can support. The Church Council approves the budget. The Finance Committee also ensures that we have good accounting practices here at the church. For example, 2 non-related persons count the offering every week. A different person signs the check, and the treasurer makes sure that the money goes into the bank every week.
Now, friends, numbers on a page can never tell the full story of fiscal responsibility. I'd like for you to hear this testimony from one of our church members about he and his family, how they've received some of the benefits made possible by your generosity.
I'm Greg Schwarzengerber.
Kara Schwarzengerber.
Live in Austin, Texas. I think we've been a member at Westlake for about 3 years now.
So it was stage 3 cancer when we actually found out.
December 17th, 2009 is when it was confirmed. That's when we found out. And it was 3 days before Abby's birthday. Because it went so fast, there wasn't really a moment to
think about it,
to step back and say, oh my gosh, what is this?
It was just a
Everything.
whirlwind and you didn't have time to think.
Kara had been through so much. She lost her hair, she had a double mastectomy. That was a good thing that we were at the church before your next surgery. Because as Abby needed a safe place, and we needed a safe place. And that's really what the church did for us during that. The nice thing about church is you have all these outside pressures and stressors that you have to deal with of just trying to cope with the illness. And, you know, from church, you have these 2 hours of just kind of peace and calm. I think when we came in to the church, I mean, I think the first time we met, Lynn was here in our house. He agreed to come meet us, which was just pretty amazing of itself. And after meeting Lynn, we're like, you know, this is a good place. We should go here and check it out. So we did. And I think at the same time, we wanted to start giving too. I mean, you know,
Well, they were giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Total strangers.
Yeah. And I mean,
Just kind and
yeah.
giving. Welcoming. And Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what did it for me. That's when you know you're at the right place. And I would say that a lot of the people helped carry us through that next year, even if they don't know it.
Yeah, no, I think that's what the weird thing is. I don't think anyone at the church realized really how important that was to us.
Maybe you have a story to tell. In those same small groups of 2 to 4 persons, I'd love for you to share how you have been impacted by this church and its generosity. And now, as we come to a close of this session, take some moments for a silent reflection. What is your takeaway from this lesson? What is one action step that you can take to practice first fruits generosity? If you have time, I'd love for you to share that in small groups. Please know that next week we'll be looking at the third reason people give, and that is regard for the leadership of the institution. I'd love for your large group leader to close you in prayer now.